The IV monitor beeped in steady rhythm beside my bed background noise I'd almost learned to ignore until my phone buzzed on the tray table. Susan, my lake house neighbor. I answered, voice rough from anesthesia and a day of not speaking. Hey, Susan. Hi, Rachel. She sounded hesitant. I just wanted to check in. Are you okay with the new owners moving in today? I blinked. New owners. You sold the lake house, right? She asked gently. They're here now, unloading boxes. Said you closed last month. A sharp pain cut through my side, but this time it wasn't the surgery. Susan, I never sold my house. There was a pause. Wait. What? Are you serious? I'm dead serious. My voice went flat. I've been in the hospital for the past 5 days. Oh my God. Her tone dropped to a whisper. Rachel, I thought it was strange you didn't come say goodbye. You need to look into this. I ended the call and sat there stunned, the phone still in my hand. My lake house, my sanctuary sold. I tried to breathe, but something inside me had already gone hollow. That house wasn't just property. It was the result of 10 years of sacrifice, of sketching designs on napkins, of working weekends, of skipping vacations and dates and dinners out. I had picked every beam, every tile, every window view myself. And now, someone else was moving in. I reached for my phone again and opened my banking app. No deposit, no alerts, no change in my accounts. If the house had sold, where was the money I dialed Brandon? Voicemail. Brandon. I said, my voice sharper. Now I need you to call me back. Right now. It's urgent. I hung up. The beeping of the IV returned, but it felt louder now. Mocking. My hand trembled slightly as I set the phone down. I thought I was here to recover from surgery. But lying in that hospital bed, something far worse had just been cut out of me without anesthesia, without permission. My trust, my name, my home. Before the foundation was poured, before the permits and the inspections and the paint swatches, it was just a scrap of land I found on a drizzly afternoon in upstate New York. 3 wooded acres near the south end of Cayuga Lake. Quiet, undisturbed, overgrown with weeds and possibility. I remember standing there in my muddy sneakers, staring at the water, thinking, this is mine. Back then, I was fresh off a divorce that left me with a used car, half a savings account, and a heart I couldn't seem to patch. My friends suggested travel therapy hobbies. I bought land. And in the solitude of those trees, I started drawing again, not for clients, not for paychecks, but for me. Every nail, every board in that house started as a sketch on graph paper. I picked the angles of the roof to match the late afternoon sun. I chose the window placements so I could see the lake while I brewed coffee or read by the fireplace. I hauled reclaimed wood from estate sales' sanded old doors down myself and helped install the stone fireplace one freezing April weekend. I didn't build it fast. I built it right. Over 10 years, one paycheck at a time. It was where I learned to be alone without being lonely, where I spent Christmas mornings wrapped in flannel and silence, where I sketched design proposals with my feet tucked beneath the dog I no longer had. It was where I began to feel like a person again. Brandon visited twice. The first time he was 17, sulking because there was no Wi-Fi. The second time he was 23 and fresh out of a failed app launch, eyeing my hardwood floors like they were a missed investment opportunity. You could Airbnb this for $300 a night, he said, scanning the space. That's a lot of untapped equity. It's not equity, I told him. It's peace. He rolled his eyes. Okay, Mom. I thought he just didn't get it. I thought he was young, hungry, still chasing validation through venture capital pitches and TED Talk podcasts. I never thought he'd take it. Not like this. It took everything I had to get in that rental car and drive to the lake. My stitches pulled with every turn, and my doctor would have had a heart attack if he'd known I'd left the hospital less than 24 hours after surgery. But pain meds couldn't numb the panic clawing through my chest. When I turned down the familiar gravel road, I saw the moving truck before I even saw the house. A U-Haul, parked crooked in the gravel, and a red SUV beside it. My heart stopped when I saw the little girl on the porch, barefoot maybe 7 or 8, twirling in circles like she already belonged there. Her mother stepped out behind her, holding a throw pillow and calling Emma. "Stay where I can see you." I pulled over, killed the engine, and just sat there. My house, my safe, sacred space, was full of someone else's laughter. I approached slowly. The father saw me first. Tall flannel shirt, cautious but polite. "Can I help you?" I tried to speak. Nothing came out. I swallowed hard and forced the words. "I'm Rachel Dawson. This was my house." His eyes narrowed. "You're Rachel, yes." A long pause. His wife joined him. "We're the Kellers," she said gently. "We just closed on the property 3 weeks ago. From Rachel Dawson. We have everything in writing. I never signed anything," I said quietly. They looked at each other. Then he disappeared inside and returned with a manila folder, flipping to the back page. "Here's the closing packet." "That's your signature, isn't it?" I stared at the looped letters, the steady ink flow. It looked like mine. Almost. But the R was just slightly wrong and the angle on the final encurled, when mine always snapped flat. "No," I whispered. "It isn't." He frowned uneasy now. "We also have a power of attorney document. Says your son Brandon was authorized to sign on your behalf." He pulled out another sheet. Brandon's name, my forged signature, and the bank transfer details. I recognized the routing number. It wasn't mine. It was his. The burn in my chest was worse than any scalpel. Paper cuts, they say, are minor. But this one bled all the way to my bones. He showed up 2 hours after I texted him. "We need to talk. Now. No excuses. No delay." He pulled into the motel parking lot like it was just another errand. Jeans hoodie, iced coffee in hand, like we were going to chat about weekend plans, not the fact that he'd sold my home out from under me. I didn't say anything at first. I just handed him the printed copy of the power of attorney. He glanced at it, then looked up with the casual guilt of someone who'd already rehearsed his lines. "You weren't using it," he said. I stared at him. "You've gone what, twice this year? It's a $700,000 piece of dead wood. I needed runway, Mom. The startup's expanding. We're on the verge of something big." My voice cracked before I even realized I'd spoken. "You forged my name." He had the decency to flinch. Slightly. "I was going to tell you. Once things settled, once we had funding secured, I was going to explain it all. You always said you believed in me." That sentence landed like a knife. I did. I believed in him through broken curfews, failed projects, late-night anxiety calls. I believed in him when his own father wouldn't even show up to court-ordered visits. I believed in him when his first business tanked and he cried in my kitchen with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. And somehow, he thought that belief included this. I built that house, I said, each word carefully unwrapped from my chest. I poured 10 years of my life into it. While you were off trying to monetize failure, I was building something permanent. "You have your career," he said, shrugging. "Your condo. You didn't need that place. But I did." He looked at me like I was the selfish one, like I was the one who'd crossed a line. The worst part, he wasn't even sorry. He was just waiting for me to understand, to accept it, as if love meant silence, as if being his mother meant giving him everything, even what I never offered. I didn't sleep that night. The motel walls were thin, the bed too soft, the heater clicking, like it was counting down something I couldn't stop. But mostly it was the thought, he didn't just take my house. He took my name, my will. By sunrise, I was on the phone with Tessa. Tessa Whitmore had been my college roommate, my late-night pizza partner, and eventually my real estate attorney. She'd also been the one person who always read the fine print for sport. I barely got through the first sentence before she cut me off. Wait. He used a forged power of attorney to sell your lake house while you were in the hospital. Yes. Dead silence. Then her voice dropped into full lawyer mode. Tell me you still have your title insurance policy. I think so. I bought whatever you told me to get. You better believe you did, she said, her voice tight with purpose. You complained about the premium for a week. I made you get the enhanced policy with forgery and fraud protection. Thank God you're a pain in the ass. I nearly laughed, and it caught in my throat like something broken. I'll dig through the records and call you back in an hour, she said. While I waited, I called the local zoning office. I needed to know what my house had been worth, what Brandon had really stolen. The woman on the line was helpful, friendly even. Yes, the Southridge properties were rezoned in March, she said. They're now designated for limited commercial use. Big increase in land value. Yours sorry. The Dawson property was just appraised 2 weeks ago as part of a developer inquiry. Estimated at $1.8 million. I nearly dropped the phone. Brandon sold it for $690,000. He had no idea. 10 minutes later, Tessa texted me a PDF of my title insurance coverage. Owner's policy. Enhanced protection. Includes coverage for forgery, impersonation, and fraud. Payout based on current appraised value. Current value, not sale value. I stared at the screen, breath caught between heartbreak and something else. Hope. They'd stolen something priceless from me, but they'd also underestimated me. And for once, that miscalculation was going to cost them more than they could afford. By the time Tessa called me back that evening, I already knew in my gut Brandon didn't do this alone. He could barely fill out a tax form without texting me. There was no way he knew how to fabricate legal documents, finesse a power of attorney, and close a 6-figure real estate deal in less than a month, especially while I was unconscious in a hospital bed. Tessa's voice came through sharp and fast. I found the notary. I sat up straighter on the motel mattress. What, she's not someone random. Her name's Elise Tan. She notarized the power of attorney and the sale documents. Guess where she works? Where she's listed as a business advisor on one of Brandon's pitch decks. She's part of his investor circle. The blood drained from my face. So she knew him intimately. More than that, she's in debt. Big time. 3 liens, 2 lawsuits, and a Chapter 13 bankruptcy filing from last year. I closed my eyes. Oh my God! She's also the one who notarized the documents the day you were in surgery, Tessa continued. They backdated everything. And get this, she claimed she witnessed your signature in person, while you were under anesthesia in a hospital 3 states away. There was a silence between us. I'm so sorry, Rach. I didn't respond right away. I stared at the ceiling fan, spinning slowly overhead, listening to it hum. I had spent my whole life believing in the people I loved. And now I had legal proof that my son had sat down with another adult and planned this. Chosen the week I was most vulnerable. Counted on me being silent. Counted on me being me, the mother who always forgave, always gave. I'll send over the complaint paperwork, Tessa said gently. You don't have to do anything yet. But if you want to pursue charges, you'll have a strong case. I hung up the call and looked down at my hands. They were steady now. I wasn't just grieving a betrayal. I was standing at the edge of something I'd never considered before. Justice, even if it had my son's name on it. I returned to the lake the next morning. Not to fight. Just to see it one last time. The air was crisp, the water still. That stubborn oak tree at the edge of the driveway, still clinging to its last few red leaves, swayed in the breeze like it remembered me. Michael Keller was waiting outside when I pulled up. He had the folder in his hand and guilt all over his face. I talked to our lawyer last night, he said before I could speak. He told us what happened. I'm so sorry, Rachel. His wife stepped outside too, Jennifer. And behind her, their daughter Emma, bundled in a sweatshirt 2 sizes too big, her hair wet, her face glowing. She just finished her morning water therapy, Jennifer said softly. The lake's been amazing for her. I see that I said, watching the little girl spin in slow circles on the dock, her bare feet skipping just above the surface. Michael looked at me hesitant. We'll leave if you want us to. We don't want to be part of this. For a moment, I didn't answer. I stared past them to the windows I had designed to catch the sunset, the beams I'd helped stain with my own hands. But that house, the one I built from blueprints and heartbreak, wasn't mine anymore. And somehow, watching Emma laugh in water, I used to wade through alone. It didn't feel like a loss. Not quite. I'm not going to fight you, I said quietly. The insurance company will handle everything. I'm not going to tear your family out of a home you didn't know was stolen. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. Rachel, thank you. I nodded, not trusting my voice. As I turned back toward my car, Emma waved at me from the dock. Bye, lady. I smiled. Letting go doesn't always feel brave in the moment. Sometimes it just feels like giving up. But that day, as I drove away from the house I'd once believed I'd die in, I realized something. Letting go isn't the same as losing. Sometimes it's the first step toward reclaiming yourself. Brandon showed up unannounced. I was back in Boston by then, staying with Tessa for a few days, while the insurance team moved ahead with the investigation. He knocked hands in the pockets of that same gray hoodie he wore when we last spoke, eyes hollow, like a kid who'd lost his dog. I didn't know what else to do, he said as soon as I opened the door. I panicked. The funding was slipping through. Investors were bailing. I was drowning, and I forged my name, I asked quietly. He winced. I thought I could fix it before you even found out. I thought if the round closed, I'd pay it all back. You'd never even have to know. I stared at him, this boy I once taught to tie his shoes now, standing in front of me trying to untie a knot of his own, making with excuses and regret. I didn't steal your house, he said. I just borrowed it. That was when something inside me finally hardened. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply said, you didn't steal a house. You stole my dignity while I was unconscious. He opened his mouth, closed it again. You knew I wouldn't be able to fight back, I continued. You waited until I was flat on my back in a hospital bed, then took something that wasn't yours to give. That's not panic. That's calculation. He looked down, ashamed. Or maybe just caught. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. But I didn't say I forgive you. I didn't say anything at all. Because apologies aren't bridges. Not when the foundation has already crumbled. I've given your name to the insurance investigators, I told him. They'll contact you soon. You'll need legal counsel. He nodded once like he already knew. I closed the door behind him. Justice doesn't always look like revenge. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it sounds like a door that no longer opens the way it used to. And sometimes it has your son's face, and you hold it accountable anyway. The check cleared on a Thursday morning. $1.8 million, wired directly into my account from the title insurance company, along with an official letter acknowledging the fraud, the forgery, and the full restitution of my loss. I stared at the numbers on the screen for a long time, not because of the amount, but because it felt so still, clean, clinical. There was no celebration, no champagne. Just me in a quiet corner of Tessa's apartment, watching justice arrive not with a bang but a transaction. Brandon didn't respond to the lawsuit. He tried to disappear into silence, but the insurer was relentless. They filed civil claims, froze his startup accounts, and contacted every investor he'd ever pitched. Within weeks, the company folded. He sent me a one-line email after that. I guess you got what you wanted. I didn't respond. Because what I wanted, what I always wanted, was for him to be better than this. For him to know the difference between need and entitlement, between ambition and theft. I used part of the settlement to buy a loft in Boston's Seaport district. Exposed brick tall windows, just enough space to sketch again. It wasn't near a lake, but it overlooked the harbor. Another kind of water, another kind of stillness. The elevator required a key card. The front entrance had 24-hour security, and for the first time in years, no one else had a copy of my keys. I hired a fiduciary financial advisor and moved the rest into long-term investments. Conservative, diversified, measured, peaceful. I didn't tell anyone where I moved except Tessa. Not because I was hiding, but because I was done leaving the doors open for people who only saw me as a means to their next chapter. From my window, I could see the fairy lights dance across the water. At night, the hum of the city just distant enough to feel like background noise. It wasn't revenge. Not really. But if revenge has a scent, it might smell like sea air. And if it has a sound, it might be the quiet click of a door locking behind you for the last time. A year later, my name sits on the speaker roster for a real estate fraud prevention summit in Chicago. A few months ago, I spoke to a packed room of investors in Dallas about title insurance and digital signature vulnerabilities. I never imagined this would be my path. But then again, I never imagined my son would be the reason for it. Life has a strange way of handing you a microphone the moment you stop whispering. I consult now on security protocols, property title protections, vulnerability assessments. The irony isn't lost on me. The house they tried to steal made me the kind of expert people pay to listen to. Some nights after a long day of meetings, I sit on the balcony of my seaport loft and remember the quiet ripple of the lake. I still miss it sometimes. The morning coffee on the deck. The way the light filtered through those tall windows I positioned so precisely. The silence. But I also remember Emma. Last month I mailed the Kellers a handwritten thank you note. No lawyers, no signatures. Just a few lines on heavy cream paper. Thank you for taking care of the house. And thank you for reminding me that sometimes the things we lose find better purpose in other hands. They didn't respond. They didn't need to. Last week I drove up to Cayuga Lake for the first time since everything ended. I didn't go to the house. I didn't knock. I parked across the road and watched from a distance. Emma was in the water, her arms outstretched, laughing, as her father stood knee-deep beside her. The dock looked exactly the same. The siding had been repainted a pale gray. The wildflower bed I started by the fence was in full bloom. She turned toward the porch and waved at someone behind the screen door. And I smiled. Not the broken smile of someone mourning what was taken, but the quiet, steady kind that comes from knowing you've already survived it. They took my house, but they didn't take my name. They didn't take my peace, and they'll never touch what I've become.